Was Paul, Saul of Tarsus, an apostle? Was Paul made an apostle by Yahushua? Paul seems to think so. 2 Timothy 1:11, whereunto I am appointed a preacher and an apostle and a teacher to the Gentiles. Paul claims to be an apostle to the Gentiles, chosen by God, but Acts 15:7, and when there had been much disputing, Peter rose up and said unto them, Men and brethren, ye know how that a good while ago God made choice among us, that the Gentiles by my mouth should hear the word of the gospel and believe. Road to Damascus. Paul's alleged story of Yahushua appearing unto him. Acts 9:3. And as he journeyed, he came near Damascus, and suddenly there shined round about him a light from heaven. And he fell to the earth, and heard a voice saying unto him, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? And he said, Who art thou, Lord? And the Lord said, I am Yahushua, whom thou persecutest. Is it hard for thee to kick against the pricks? So there you have it. Paul claims to have seen Christ, but what did Christ say before he left? Matthew 24:23. Then if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not. Changing stories. First, he fell to the earth, and then the men which journeyed with him stood speechless, hearing the voice. This is Paul's claim. Then he fell into the ground, and they heard not the voice. Wait a second. First he said they heard the voice. Paul's third testimony. They all fall to the ground. Wait a second. First it was only him, and now they all fall. Would this stand up in court, people? Would Paul be considered a liar with 3 different testimonies? I would think so. How many apostles does the Bible indicate, and are they named? Matthew 12:1. And when he called unto his 12 disciples, he gave them power against unclean spirits to cast them out, and to heal all manner of sicknesses and all manner of disease. And now the names of the 12 apostles are these. The first, Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew his brother, and James the son of Zebedee, and John his brother. Philip, Bartholomew, Thomas, Matthew the publican, James the son of Alphaeus, and Labius, whose surname was Thaddeus, Simon the Canaanite, and Judas Iscariot, who was to betray him. Judas is gone now. I guess Paul can take his place. Well, let's see if that really happened. Acts 1:20, for it is written in the book of Psalms, Let his habitation be desolate, and let no man dwell therein, and his bishopric let another take. Beginning from the baptism of John unto the same day that he was taken up from us, must one be ordained to be a witness with us of his resurrection. And they appointed 2, Joseph called Barnabas, who was surnamed Justus, and Matthias. And they prayed and said, Thou, Lord, which knowest the hearts of all men, show whether of these 2 men thou hast chosen, that he may take part of this ministry and apostleship, from which Judas by transgression fell, that he might go to his own place. And they gave forth their lots, and the lot fell on Matthias, and he was numbered with the 11 apostles. Need more proof that there are only 12 apostles? Okay. In the kingdom, Revelations 21:14, the walls of the city had 12 foundations, and in them the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. Did Yahushua warn us about false apostles and false prophets? Revelations 2:1, unto the angels of the church of Ephesus. I know thy works, and thy labor, and thy patience, and how thou canst not bear them that are evil. And thou hast tried them which say they are apostles, and are not, and hast found them to be liars. Who claimed to be an apostle? Who was Yahushua referring to that visited the Ephesians? Ephesians 1:1, Paul, an apostle of Yahushua by the will of God, to the saints which are in Ephesus, and to the faithful in Yahushua. How do we know Yahushua was talking about Paul? Well, Paul confirms it. 2 Timothy 2:15, This thou knowest, that all they which are in Asia be turned away from me. Matthew 16:6. Then Yeshua said unto them, Take heed and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees. Was Yahushua trying to warn us about a Pharisee? Acts 23:6. Then when Paul perceived that one part was Sadducees and the other Pharisees, he cried out in the council, Men and brethren, I am a Pharisee, the son of a Pharisee, and of the hope of the resurrection of the dead I am called in question. Matthew 24:23. For there shall rise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonder, insomuch that, if it were possible, they would deceive the very elect. Behold, I have told you before. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, Behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers, believe it not. 2 Corinthians 12:12. Truly the signs of an apostle were wrought among you, in all patience, in signs and wonders, and mighty deeds. John 10:12. But he that is a hireling, and not a shepherd, whose own sheep are not, seeth the wolf cometh, and leaveth the sheep, and fleeth, and the wolf catcheth them, and scattereth the sheep. Matthew 7:14. Beware of false prophets, which come in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are raven wolves. Genesis 49:12. Benjamin shall raven as a wolf, and in the morning he shall devour his prey, and at night he shall divide his spoil. Paul says, Romans 11:1, I say then, hath God cast away his people? God forbid. For I also am an Israelite, of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. Very interesting. Did the disciples, the true apostles, try to warn us? 1 John 2:18-19. Little children, it is the last time, and ye have heard that the Antichrist shall come. Even now there are many Antichrists, whereby we know that it is the last time. They went out from us, but they were not of us. For if they had been of us, they would no doubt have continued with us. But they went out, that they might be made manifest that they were not all of us. Did Paul have a disagreement with the disciples and leave the disciples group? Galatians 2:6. And of these who seem to be somewhat, whatsoever they were, maketh no matter to me. God accepted no man's person. For they who seemed to be somewhat in conference added to me nothing. And when James, Cephas, and John, who seemed to be pillars, perceived the grace that was given unto me, they gave me Barnabas the right hands of fellowship, that we should go unto the heathen, and they unto the circumcision. But when Peter was come to Antioch, I withstood him to the face, because he was to be blamed. And when I saw that they walked not uprightly according to the truth of the gospel, I said unto Peter before them all. Wow, those two verses, it's something. Paul disrespects the apostles of Jesus, says that they added to him nothing, and he disrespects Peter right to his face in front of everybody. What happened to rebuke, not to rebuke before all, to bring somebody aside with a problem? And then he calls them basically ungodly. They're not walking uprightly. It is very clear that Paul is extremely out of line. The apostles never acted like he acts, because he is not an apostle. But now let's take a look and see how Paul thinks of Paul. 2 Corinthians 11:5. For I suppose I was not a whit behind the very chiefest apostle. If you're going to believe Paul, believe this, his own words, as he confesses. 2 Corinthians 12:7. There was given to me a thorn in the flesh, the messenger of Satan, to buffet me, lest I should be exalted above measure. 1 Corinthians 15:9. For I am not meant to be called an apostle, because I persecuted the church of God. 2 Corinthians 12:16. But be it so, I did not burden you, nevertheless, being crafty, I caught you with guile. Romans 3:7. For if the truth of God hath more abounded through my lie unto his glory, why am I judged as a sinner? Let me answer that question, Paul, using scriptures. Jeremiah 48:10. Cursed be he that doeth the work of the Lord deceitfully, deceitfully. Psalms 101:7. He that worketh deceit shall not dwell in my house. He that telleth lies shall not tarry in my sight.